Hello everybody, this is a continuation of my previous video, the Biotech versus Haley matchup. If you haven't watched the previous video, you have to watch it because this is the second half of the game. To recap on where we left off, I am up 4 gender points to 0 against my opponent, and I have 1 Nisei Mark II token. I have a scoring server, which is hard to get through because it requires 2 dog tokens, and there's a Caprice at the end of the tunnel. R&D is relatively porous. It's an Eli into pub. I'm not resing the Eli yet because I want to be able to threaten all sorts of ice, deter him from playing indexing or Maker's Eye runs, because he might be running into the unknown. So here he tries to poke around on my R&D. Again, I don't res it. I don't want him to be able to index or Maker's Eye safely later on. I'll let him through. It still costs him 2 credits, and he treasures a Jackson Howard, bringing him down to 3 credits. Pretty good news for me. I'm not too worried about my credit level because I can burst up anytime next turn with a draw into Celebrity Gift. He plays Lucky Find and is up to 12 credits, scavenging his dog for a fresh new dog with 4 counters. A very wise move that will see him be able to get through my remote now. But still my remote is looking in good shape because I have a Caprice and a Nisei Mark II token to defend it. Right now, I'm digging for my final agenda, a Future Perfect. If I top deck 1, I'm going to install Double Advance in the remote, and I should be able to win, unless I lose multiple side games in a row. Here he gets exasperated and goes for a Maker's Eye run. Now I res the Eli, because this will cost him 1 dog token. So bringing him down to 3 tokens is very good, because this means he can only run through my remote once. But he also gets to deny any agendas on the top of my deck, except there weren't any, which is pretty bad news not just for him, but for me too. I need to see those agendas. If I know the next 3 cards are not going to be agendas, I'm in a lot of trouble, because the longer the game goes on, the worse it becomes for me. I'm playing a rush deck. I do not want this to go to the late game, where he can easily burst out in credits and he has lots of dogs and levy to work with. So I know the top 3 cards of my deck are not agendas, so I need to get the agendas. I've used both my fast tracks. The logical thing to do here is to Jackson in the remote. If he doesn't contest this Jackson, next turn I'm going to reshuffle everything in R&D and hope that I top deck a Future Perfect next turn. Let's see what he does here. Alright. He slows down the pace a little, knowing that there's no point in Makers eyeing my R&D since there are 2 cards up there that are non-agendas. So since he does nothing, I'm going to reshuffle a couple of cards. I reshuffle a fast track because I want to be able to summon an agenda on demand. Jackson Howard and Hedge Fund, obvious choices. Here I draw into a Marcus Betty, and in turns, these are not agendas I'm looking for. I'm not finding the agendas. If my opponent is exasperated, well, he shouldn't be, because I'm just as exasperated as well. I'm looking for those agendas just as hard as he is. With my last click, I install a Himitsu Baku on R&D because I'm sick and tired of Maker's Eye runs. I know he's going to do it pretty soon, and I want to tax him for doing so. There's not much in the way of taxing ice in my hand right now. I could play the Caprice on R&D, but as you know, that's not a good idea because that washes away the Caprice on the remote. So here I actually expected him to go in for a Maker's Eye run, since his rig is pretty solid. But he doesn't. Instead, he chooses to continue setting up by drawing more cards, and here he performs the indexing, which I didn't really expect, but this is where the magic of Fractal Tax comes in. By taxing his lady for 2 tokens, I ensure that he cannot index and run to steal the top deck agenda the very same turn. So after some thought, he decides to jack out, because he wants to challenge my remote instead. At this point, I think he made a mistake here. If he thinks that the card in my remote is a Kronos project, he should actually levy instead of trying to contest it, because I can kick him out for sure, whether it's the Mark II token or Caprice Nisei. So in this situation, if I were afraid of a Kronos project, I would have levied, but instead he chose to run and try to contest my Caprice server. Of course, it turned out it's not a Kronos project, it's Marcus Betty in the remote. So he actually had nothing to fear, but he was trying to force me to play side games as many times as possible, so that he can slowly but surely destroy my scoring remote, which is a good thing to do, don't get me wrong. But preemptive levy is very important in such games. And yes, it could easily cost him the game, because he would run out of recursion if that were really a Chronos project. But it's not. The game continues. I top deck an NAPD. Do I attempt to score it? In most cases, the answer is no, because it will cost me tempo and it doesn't bring me any closer to winning the game. I'd rather score a future perfect instead. But there's one very important point to note here. I do run a clone retirement in my deck. I'm able to fast advance to victory. So knowing that, I place the NAPD there. If I score it, I get up to 6 points and I can win off a top deck clone retirement. Now here he wins the free side. No, he doesn't win the side game. So my NAPD is safe. But I'm now down to 4 credits. I can score the NAPD. And yes, I still have my Nisei Mark II token. So I'm in the driver's seat right now. The moment I top deck the one clone retirement in my deck, I will win. I really like the single clone retirement in my deck because no one expects fast advance from this deck. You don't expect the 1 point agenda to be a clone retirement. It's usually a Chronos project or a genetic resequencing, both of which are more popular options and cannot be fast advance. But the moment I fast advance here, he won't see it coming, so he can't even react with Clot. I mean, he could, but he wouldn't think of reacting with Clot until I double advance it and it's too late. So here I just continue drawing cards to draw past the R&D lock, hoping to find the clone retirement. I do not find it. I don't even find an agenda to score. If it's an NAPD here, I could at least install advance it and I would probably win right here. But that is not the case. So what do I do here? Do I just continue drawing up? No, I'm afraid of legwork. Legwork can easily steal the game from my hands. I much rather top deck the winning agenda than to hold it in HQ for 1 turn. Knowing that he packs the threat of legwork and having a same old thing on the board, I'm not going to tempt fate. I know I'm up 6 points to nothing, but I cannot have him deny my agendas. So here he continues drawing up, knowing probably knowing that there's no pressure that he needs to place whatsoever. So he just gets lots of money. And at this point I know that the only way I can drag the game out is by taxing his barrier breaker or with the Marcus Betty into Ichi combo, which I set up right here on R&D. So he walks right into it and I'm about to fire it off. I fire off the Betty first and we play the side game for Betty. I win the side game and I'm going to trash a program. Up till now, I would have trashed the study guide, but I'm now more concerned about taxing his barrier breakers than anything else because I have 2 barriers on both R&D and the remote. So I decide to trash the dog instead. So hopefully this will slow him down a bit more just so that I can top deck the winning agenda. But this doesn't deter him. Of course, he uses the clone chip to retrieve his barrier breaker. Another reason why I don't want to trash study guide is because the only ice that punishes study guide right now is Lotus Field on the remote, and he's probably more interested in R&D digging anyway. If he locks my R&D, I won't be able to use my remote in any case, so it only makes sense to trash his barrier breaker instead. He doesn't find an agenda. Again, he's stuck on 0 points. I am as in shock as him because he deserved at least 1 or 2 agendas by now, and that would mean that I would be able to top deck fresh agendas as well. Instead, now I know for sure that my top deck will not be an agenda, which is very, very annoying. Now here's an annoying thing. I'm down to 1 credit. Playing with Ichi and Betty has cost me a lot of credits, and there's a card that gives me money in my hand that I cannot use because he did not jack out on his last turn. So now I'm in poverty, and this is where things start breaking down for me. Because I cannot contest the side games on my remote should he choose to go for it. Thankfully, he's giving me time this turn because he played Levy. So instead of running my remote, he chose to set up, giving me some time to recuperate in credits. But this won't last long. Here I tried to bluff a Marcus Betty on R&D in order to deter him from running my R&D again. It's actually a Caprice Nisei that I will never rest. Again, I'd rather have the Caprice on the remote. This is just to deter him from making runs on R&D, certainly deter him from playing Maker's Eyes, so that I can drag out the game, hopefully top deck the clone retirement. At this point, everything I'm doing is to distract him from R&D. As long as he doesn't R&D lock me, I have a slim chance of winning, a 1 in 19 chance of top decking the clone retirement. Oh dear, he's going for my remote. As I said, this is a problem when you are poor. I can't really win side games. I bid 1 on the Caprice, he wins the side game. I could rest the Betty here to side again, but I'm only down to 2 credits. It's worthless, it's pointless to do so. So, yeah, there's no point in playing the Marcus Betty side game, and anyway, I already have a Mark II token. So instead, I'm going to use the Mark II token right now to protect my remote. The main motivation here is to enable the successful demonstration in my hand. Of course, protecting my remote is a plus, but the most important thing here is I need those credits so that I can play the side games again. Kicking him out by ending the run this turn allows me to do just that. And so now he cannot rerun my remote to kill the Caprice because he only has 1 dog token left. So this is a perfect time for me to recover. And he takes a credit. So now I can demonstrate. And looking at my hand, it's all ice, all pretty useless ice. Eli is useless, Swordsman is ineffective, Ichi is nice but it's a bit expensive, Pup not very good right now, Susanoo no Mikoto. That is a piece of ice I need to take care of. I'm not playing up against Anarch. This Shaper doesn't really have any solutions for Susanoo. I need to use this to win the game. In the event that the clone retirement stuck at the bottom of my deck, I need to score the final Nisei on NAPD to win the game. Susanoo will get me there. In the meantime, he scavenges the dog, so once again, he can run through my scoring remote. This time, I'll have enough credits to defend Caprice, and that is always on my mind. But if I want to defend my winning agenda with Susanoo, I need to keep in mind that I need lots of credits. 9 credits to rest Susanoo, 4 credits to advance NAPD on Nisei. Now here he shows me some bad news. He places an Atman at 2. I was wondering, why Atman at 2? And I quickly realized, it wipes out the dog tags. Himitsu Bako is now porous. This is not good. This is very, very bad news. This allows him to run my remote so much more often. And here he just runs my remote turn after click after click after click. He spends the next 3 clicks running, and I can tell you right now, he fails all 3 side games. So thank goodness for that for me. But I know that my remote is going to be short-lived. He has found the solution to my remote, and I'm in a lot of trouble. I can't score my winning agenda if I find it. At this point, I just continue drawing into more and more ice. This deck packs a lot of ice, and most of it is useless by the late game. Turing is absolutely useless against Study Guide. Oh gosh, I'm in a lot of trouble. I mean, no, I don't have Marcus Betty. If I had Marcus Betty and Ichi on R&D, I could at least attempt to place Turing on the remote and threaten winning with Turing into Lotus Field and force him to get his study guide out again. But, well, I do find a somewhat useful piece of ice because he has committed his Atman to Strength 2. Excalibur is now pretty useful on the remote. The problem is he won both side games, the Caprice and the Betty on the remote. So now I'm pretty screwed because now I have nothing to protect my remote. I top deck a Betty, which I place in the remote. Again, everything I'm doing right now is simply to stall the runner so that I can top deck the clone retirement. Because there's absolutely no way I'm going to win otherwise. I know there's no way I can defend my remote anymore. And he has trashed almost all of my protection upgrades, Caprice and Betty. I kind of wish I had a Caprice in my hand to toss into the remote, but I put it on R&D instead. So here he runs R&D now that my remote is clear, and now it's time for me to rest the Caprice on R&D. And this is a pretty crucial moment because this is my last line of defense. My remote is gone, my HQ is wide open, R&D is my last saving grace. I need to prevent him from R&D locking me so I can top deck the winning agenda. But that wasn't the case. He won the Caprice side game, he locks my R&D, he trashes the Caprice. And at this point, I knew it was game over. I had a Susanoo in my hand, and that could win me the game because he probably has no solution to it. But, really? It costs 9 credits, and again, 4 more credits to score a 4-2 agenda. There's no way I'm going to be able to afford it in the next few turns, unless I top deck a hedge fund or celeb gift or something like that. I do protect the future perfect in my hand. He's still on 0 points, but now he knows that there is food in my hand, and I'm only a couple of R&D digs away from doom. Just realize how packed my R&D is with agendas since I haven't been seeing any of them in the past few turns. I finally see a Nisei Mark II, and I know he's going to continue running my hand knowing that there's a future perfect in there. So now my only line of recourse is to protect the Nisei in a new remote with the Susanoo. I can't afford to place it on the existing remote, so I need to create a new remote. And he seems to know that I have a Susanoo protecting that card because he gets his SMC out and goes for my remote. I res the Susanoo and he immediately fems it and scores a winning Nisei. I mean, not winning Nisei. His first agenda, putting him on the board. And it goes downhill from here because my last line of defense, that piece of ice, is no longer relevant. Well, it's not my last line of defense. I do have a Marcus Petty and I immediately place it on the Ichi remote. So now I could trash his fam to potentially open up a scoring server again. With my Susanoo, I could install double advance the future perfect into the Susanoo if he runs my R&D. And knowing that he probably needs to run R&D sooner or later, I might stand a chance. He continues poking my R&D to find a future perfect that he accessed earlier. He doesn't find it. But what he does here, Asher. He knows exactly what's going on. He knows exactly what the one thing that will lose him the game, and he counters it perfectly with the Asher. I can't do anything about that, and the first thing he immediately does is to get the Ichi out of the way onto the useless scoring remote and place the easily passed Susanoo Mikoto on the R&D. So now the only thing I can do on R&D is to bounce him to archives or end the run. So that Marcus Betty is pretty useless. And at this point, I knew that I was not going to win the game anymore. I've exhausted every single line of defense that I had. Ichi is irrelevant now. Marcus Petty is irrelevant now. All my caprices are in the bin. All my end runs are useless because he has Dog, Atman 2, and Study Guide. I have nothing I can use to defend him anymore. And from now on, he'll simply run R&D every single turn for the cost of 3 credits per run. I can't prevent him from R&D locking me, so he will eventually win by by denying me the clone retirement. And from there, it was only a matter of time before I lost the game. I could have had it all. Agenda stuck down deep, and that's why I lost. Well, it's the truth. I would have won if I saw my clone retirement, or if the NAPD that I scored as my third agenda had been a future perfect instead. In both cases, I had the resources to protect and score my winning agenda. It just didn't happen. Fast tracks are supposed to smoothen out this consistency in finding agendas, but unfortunately, they were both gone. I've used them to score the first 2 Niseis. And anyway, fast tracking for a future perfect is a very bad idea even if I found the fast track. HQ was wide open, he would just pummel it with legworks. So that was very unfortunate, but then again, my opponent was very unlucky with his R&D dig, so it kind of evens out, which is unfortunate because I really felt that I was in a good position and I really should have won that game. You're up 4-0 with a Nisei counter. How can you not win? Well, I got to the late game, and that's the problem, because when you get to the late game, you lose the game. Triple prepaid voice pad was way too much for me to handle. It meant that he could get fam out at any point in time. It meant that he could recover from a study guide snipe by Marcus Petty. There's so many ways he can recover, and I was not very resilient. I ran out of steam with money, and I couldn't defend my side games because of that. All the possible outs I had towards the end of the game, be it Susanoo no Mikoto, Marcus Petty with Ichi, Excalibur, all of them were rendered irrelevant with the hard counters on his side. The longer the game dragged on, the more time he had to find his hard counter cards in the form of Escher, in the form of Femme Fatale, etc. So you really need to attack the early game, because Shapers and Anarchs are so good late game, there's no point in contesting them at that point. Even if you have Caprice on your side, it's only a matter of time before you eventually lose. And that's what I learned from this game. Thanks for watching and happy net running. Goodbye.